Why didn't you tell me any of this before?
I already told you. I didn't have a reason to.
Charlie smacks the table with his fists in conjunction with his claim. Pure negative energy radiates throughout the room. A frustrated Charlie leans forward in his chair. He grabbed a lit cigarette from his ashtray, took a single puff, and put it out, grinding it down into ash.
Look, what are we gonna do?
Why are you asking me? You know more than I do.
The two clowns sat at the table, defeated.
Look, okay? I'm sorry for losing it. I shouldn't be mad at you for coming clean. I'm still having a hard time believing what you've told me, though.
Wacky picked up a fresh cigar that had been laying on the table. He leaned across the table and grabbed Charlie's lighter, lighting his cigar and taking a few puffs to fill the silence.
So, what else can you tell me about these guys? You never told me what the deal you made with these guys was.
Charlie sighed.
Well, they knew I figured them out. I don't know how, but they knew. A few of their guards ambushed me when I was alone in the storage room one day. They only wanted to talk, but man, you should have seen the weapons on those guys. They wanted to keep me alive. See, they didn't want to have to shut the operation down because one of us found out. And they didn't want to kill me either. They said it'd be too difficult to cover up my disappearance or alter your memories of me. After all, I'm just as well known to the public as you are. So, we made a deal. I told them I wouldn't tell any of you guys, but only if we were better taken care of. That's why we have as much food as we do, and the drinks of our choice, even our smokes.
Wacky peered down at the cigar in his mouth.
Okay, well, what did they want?
Charlie lit another cigarette.
Surveillance,
Charlie said, as he tossed the lighter onto the table.
You know that creepy-ass porcelain clown doll thing that roams around the halls and talks to us?
Yes?
Wacky questioned.
That little fucker is spying on me, you, and everyone else in this goddamn place. Same case as that weird talking mirror in your showroom.
You mean the one with the face the kids play with while I'm backstage?
No, Wacky. The other mirror with the talking clown face. Of course I'm talking about that one. How many fucking magic mirrors you got dangling in your showroom?
Whoa, Jesus Christ, bud, calm down. I was just asking. Remember who you're talking to. Keep yelling at me like that, and you're not gonna like what comes next.
Sorry for snapping. I guess I should also mention Swirls and Hug's video camera, too. When Swirls became attached to that video camera, they told me they wanted to see footage they captured. Swirls, being kind of an oaf, didn't even question it when I had mentioned they could make money off their films. So now, when they use up their SD card, they give it to me. I hand it off to the people at Nova, and in return I get the money, to which I get back to Swirls and Hugs.
Wacky smudged his cigar into the ashtray and leaned back into his chair, crossing his arms. The room was silent, and the air felt stagnant. Wacky perked up.
God, we're gonna have to tell the others, you know.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to it.
Think about that scheme you mentioned some more. I'll give you a bit of time. Maybe here in around 15 minutes or so, I'll get the others. Only if you're ready, though.
Wacky was visibly on edge. Outside the door of the lounge stood Hugs and Swirls, with ears pressed against the wood, eavesdropping on their conversation.
I told you we should have came here earlier, Swirls. I really want to know what they're talking about in there.
Hugs whispered to Swirls.
It sounds like they're talking about my My camera?
Swirl said, bewildered. They both stood as still as possible, trying not to give away their presence behind the door.
Think maybe we should go in and ask?
Just as Hugs asked, Wacky could be heard from the inside, pounding his mallet on the table in frustration while yelling at Charlie.
On second thought, never mind. Let's go back to our room and have a drink.
Hugs suggested.
You don't have to ask me twice.
Hugs and Swirls quietly crept away from the door, once again trying not to alert the mad clowns to their presence. Once they figured they were in a safe radius to pick up the pace, they did so without hesitation. Eventually they walked to the other side of the facility, through the speedway, finding the back entrance to their beloved sanctuary, the party room. As they entered, they shut the door behind them and flicked on the lights.
What'll it be tonight, Hugs? We've got gin, vodka, rum, whiskey, tequila, and brandy,
Swirl said, with excitement in his voice, his eyes spinning faster in anticipation.
I think I'll take it easy tonight,
Hugs said as he sat down behind the party table. Swirls walked over to the wall where Hugs sat. Moving aside some of the silver streamers, he pressed a small black button, which released a handle that jutted out from the wall. It was their secret mini fridge, chock full of alcohol.
You sure? We've still got so much. Nah, I need to quit drinking. Besides, I've got really high standards when it comes to drinks now. I feel like I'm outgrowing alcohol or something.
Swirls gave Hugs a skeptical look. He grabbed a bottle of brandy and set it in front of Hugs.
You're meeting all my standards. Aha! I know you better than you think,
Swirls said with a smirk. He grabbed himself a bottle of whiskey and locked up the fridge. With that, Swirls walked around the table and sat down opposite of Hugs.
Tense night tonight, huh?
Swirls said, following up his statement with a huge gulp of liquor.
Yeah, Wacky and Charlie are going at it over God knows what. Wally hasn't been talking to anyone, and both Crouchy and Mia are being reclusive as usual. Can't complain about that, though. Stupid-ass animal.
Hugs scoffed.
Hey, I'm not a huge fan of Crouchy either, but I don't think you give him enough credit. He learned to open the rolling doors all by himself. Now we can move our set pieces around the speedway like a piece of cake. Before, we needed at least 2 or more people holding those heavy-ass steel doors open. I know how much you complained about that,
Swirls said, followed by another huge gulp.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. But you ain't the one who had to fix his goddamn curtains the day we were forced to take in Mia. Charlie was cleaning up the mess while I was fixing his stage. Wacky did nothing but watch us work, and you were blacked out backstage,
Hugs said, seemingly throwing shade toward Swirls.
Never been a better moment to be blacked out,
Swirls quietly muttered under his breath as he took another huge gulp. The 2 clowns sat in silence. Nothing but the occasional breathy smell of alcohol and a belch to add to the awkwardness. The hanging sign reading "Happy Birthday" detached from the ceiling and fell to the floor.
That was the coolest thing that's happened all day. I ain't fixing that. Fuck you.
The atmosphere in the room was turning sour.
So, what do you think the boss and Charlie were talking about?
Hugs questioned, taking a quick swig from his bottle.
Well, it was hard to make things out through that thick-ass door, but I heard mention of my camera and the SD card. I have no clue what it could have been about.
His eyes gradually began to slow down as he concentrated on his thoughts.
Maybe they were considering getting me a new one. You wish. You know, Wacky. Maybe Charlie would, but I highly doubt they were shouting and screaming over getting you a new camera. Stop being a self-centered prick.
Hugs chuckled.
Oh, woe is me. I'm such a sensitive soul.
Swirls sarcastically remarked as he leaned back in his chair, dramatically putting one hand over his eyes and balling the other into a fist, resting it over his heart.
Your insults don't do jack shit, Hugs. Just like you.
Swirls had already gone through his entire bottle in the time they were talking. Noticing his bottle was dry, he stood up and walked over to a corner of the room. A singular Walmart bag, suspended by a wooden peg jutting out from the wall. He dropped his bottle into the bag. The bag ripped, and the bottle fell to the floor, shattering into pieces.
God damn it,
Swirls said defeatedly. Hugs was laughing hysterically in the background.
Shut up,
Swirls muttered as he stood and stared at the mess he had made. Not only was the happy birthday banner on the ground, it was now covered in glass.
Now that was the coolest thing that's happened all day.
Hugs began to laugh even more. He took a swig of brandy, but as he did so, he choked on the liquid. His laugh now turned into a violent coughing fit as tears streamed from his eyes.
As you were saying,
Swirl said with a huge shit-eating grin. Swirls took a few minutes to clean up the broken glass as Hugs recovered from the brandy going down the wrong pipe. Now, a good 10 minutes or so have passed. After things had settled down, Hugs sat quietly in his chair. Meanwhile, Swirls grabbed another bottle of alcohol from their secret mini fridge.
Takes a lot to get you drunk, huh?
He said as he twiddled his fingers on the table.
My tolerance only keeps growing,
Swirls said as he leaned his body back, chugging practically half the bottle in one go.
But I don't mind.
Swirls stood idly, observing the room in his place.
Hey, Hugs, you ever notice that there's slight blood stains on the floor?
He said to Hugs as he gestured with his bottle hand.
Yeah, remember what the table looks like underneath the cloth?
Hugs rolled back a bit of the tablecloth to unveil a once white folding table, now charred and black.
Oh, right. That was a fun one. That kid, what was his name? Neil, right? We need to play with fire more in our films. I've never had so much fun,
Swirls said, his eyes joyfully swirling.
Yeah, remember the mom? Help me,
Hugs said in a mocking tone.
Seeing the life drain from her eyes. Oh, I can practically feel the adrenaline.
Swirl's eyes began to swirl faster and faster.
Haha, remember when Wally came in with the fire extinguisher and started screaming at us?
The two clowns were once again laughing like they had never laughed before.
Hey, that gives me an idea for our next murder. We should...
The party was interrupted with the sound of the speedway doorway opening. In walked Wacky Mole himself.
Hey, guys. Can I step in for a moment?
Wacky said.
Yeah, sure, boss. What's up?
Hugs questioned. Swirls examined Wacky. He looked downtrodden. His head was kept low, and there wasn't any hint of a grin to be seen. His eyes were too dead and dull. Swirls spoke up.
Hey, Wacky. What's with the long face? Something bugging you, perhaps? Listen. Meet me and Charlie in the lounge in 10 minutes. I'm gonna go get Wally. Just help yourselves to the food and, I'll be there shortly.
Wacky said, eyes pointed to the floor as he leaned with one hand in the doorway and the other on his hip, Wacky turned around and began to walk away. Swirls turned around to look at Hugs. They both wore a concerned expression on their faces. Wacky walked through the halls alone. As he walked, he eventually found himself traversing through the same corridor that was connected to the hall that led to his showroom. As he approached the hall, he stared down the vacant passageway. It wasn't where he was heading, but he felt a certain sense of curiosity, or perhaps an urge to investigate the room once more. He walked to the end of the hall. There, he found himself outside the door that led directly to the back of his stage. The door was still unlocked. Opening it, he walked through. There was Liam's body, still laying in the pool of his own blood. Wacky stepped off his stage and stood in front of Liam's corpse. The notepad with Wacky's signature on it laid in the pool of blood. Certainly, the signature was not readable anymore.
Poor kid,
Wacky said, with remorse. Just like Charlie, he started to feel his sins crawling on his back. Was he actually regretting the things he had done in the past? Had Charlie really opened up his eyes through one conversation? Wacky thought to himself. Seeing red, Wacky put his fist straight through the mirror and shattered it into thousands of shards, all falling to the floor. Wacky, breathing heavily, realized he still had his fist in the middle of the mirror. He retracted his arm and gazed at his four-fingered hand. He tore his glove open, and he was bleeding. The rest of his glove was being stained in the process.
great,
he sarcastically said as he went back through his backstage door, kicking the door open and walking back down the hall. He eventually found his way to Wally's private room. Upon opening the door, Wally was sitting at his desk on the far side of the room. He appeared to be writing in a journal of some kind. Wally turned around. As he opened his mouth to speak, Wacky cut him off.
Wally, I need you in the lounge. 5 minutes.
Wacky slammed the door shut before Wally could get a word out. Back in the lounge, Charlie was trying to process his emotions. He sat at the table with his face buried in his hands. His concentration was broken when the door to the lounge gently opened. In through the door walked Hugs and Swirls. They quietly crept in, not knowing if anyone else was in the room. Soon enough, they immediately noticed Charlie, sitting by himself at the table, looking even more distressed than Wacky.
Hey, Charlie, what's going on? Why is the mood so sour tonight?
Swirls said, as him and Hugs pulled up a couple of chairs to sit at the table.
Yeah, fess up,
Hugs demanded.
Hey guys, we'll talk about it when everyone else is here. For now, how about you guys grab something to eat or whatever, and we can maybe just talk normally?
Charlie said. Swirls and Hugs looked at each other with raised eyebrows. They knew something had to be really wrong for both Charlie and Wacky to be acting the way they were.
Sure, I guess. What do you want to talk about, though? There's not that much that's new.
Charlie bit his lip.
Mm-hmm.
The awkward aurora of the room was broken by the sound of the door opening once more. Wacky walked into the room, followed by Wally.
Hey, Charlie, you know none of us are that good with the big guy. I need you to go get him. Bring me a 2, obviously.
Charlie begrudgingly got up out of his chair. As he walked closer to the door, he made sure to walk to the food table first, grabbing his free candy bucket, which still happened to have a couple handfuls of candy left at the bottom. He made his way out the door and down the hall. Navigating his way around the speedway, he eventually found his way outside the backstage door to Crouchy's showroom. He ever so quietly opened the door, knowing the two were most likely asleep. He was right. Mia was asleep on her own little air mattress, similar to the one Liam was given. Crouchy was asleep too, but he was sleeping on his stage, with all his limbs splayed out seemingly as far as they could reach. His head was hanging off the back edge of the stage, and his right leg had knocked over his box of toys, making a mess. But ironically, he's a quieter sleeper than Mia.
Psst! Mia!
Charlie whispered. He knew getting Mia to wake Crouchy up would be a safer idea than him doing it. At least for him.
Mia!
Charlie loudly whispered. Crouchy came rocketing up from his sleep, once again kicking his box of toys in the process. The box flew to the other side of the room as Crouchy tried his best to come to a standing position. Standing up, Crouchy must have forgot he was too tall for his own room. He hit his head hard on the ceiling. He grunted angrily as he held onto his head. In a fit of rage, he took his fist and punched a hole through the ceiling, next to the other 3 holes in the ceiling. Surely, the ceiling will learn its lesson this time. Mia was still asleep.
Crouch, it's me, Charlie. Calm down, buddy,
Charlie said. Crouchy stood still. He recognized that voice. It was the voice of his favorite friend, besides Mia, of course.
Charlie?
He groaned out in his low, animal-like voice.
Yes, good boy. Here, I got some candy for you, big guy,
Charlie said, as he grabbed the bucket with both hands and launched the candy at Crouchy. In response, Crouchy made it his priority to get on his hands and knees and search for as much of the candy as possible. Charlie knelt down to Mia and shook her awake. She stirred awake and rubbed her eyes, trying to make out who was in front of her.
Hey kid, don't worry. It's your Uncle Charlie. I need you to help me get Crouchy into the lounge, okay? It's really important. I'll let you guys go back to sleep after we talk, but we need you guys there, okay?
Mia tiredly nodded her head in response.
All right then, let's get started,
Charlie said, as he slapped his knee and rose to a standing position.
Crouch, get your candy, and we're out of here.
Back in the lounge, the 4 clowns sat around the table. Wacky, Wally, Hugs, and Swirls. Occasionally, some small talk would break the silence between Wacky and the birthday duo. Meanwhile, Wally had his face buried in a novel the whole time. Wacky raised his wrist in order to check his watch for the time. He, in fact, did not have a watch on his wrist.
Damn, what is taking them so long? I thought they would have been back.
The door swung open. Charlie walked through the door.
Hey, a little help here. Someone go outside and push. I'll be pulling him.
Wacky, Hugs, and Swirls all stared at each other.
Rock, paper, scissors,
Hugs said as he put his fist out over the table. The other 2 put their fists in without hesitation.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All 3 spoke in unison.
Hugs, you can't keep picking rock over and over. Says you, swirly dipshit. I can do whatever I want,
Hugs said with sass as he took his bald fists and bonked Swirls on the head.
You fuck!
Swirls angrily yelled as he grabbed the back of Hugs' chair and yanked it over backwards. Hugs came crashing to the floor. Wacky chuckled. Wally still had his face buried in his book.
Can one of you just get over here and help me?
Wacky sighed, reluctantly getting up out of his chair and heading over to aid Charlie. Wacky went outside the door to the lounge to push Crouchy through the door, while Charlie pulled. Once in position, they did exactly so. Crouchy came crashing in, knocking Charlie over and making Wacky stumble as he lost his balance. Wally slowly turned around in his chair to see what was going on. Once he realized it had nothing to offer him, he slowly turned back around and buried his face in his novel once more.
All right, now everyone's here. Take a seat, and we'll begin shortly.
Hey, Mia, just sit with Crouchy in the corner, okay? Keep him company. He doesn't need to hear this part of the lecture. We just need him for the later. There's a couple of bags of candy under the table. If need be, you can give him some, all right?
Mia nodded her head once more.
All right. Hugs, get your ass back in your chair. Wally, set your book down. You guys are going to want to pay attention to this. Charlie, come stand up here. You've got some explaining to do.
Charlie felt ridden with anxiety. He bashfully looked at Wacky and the other clowns, who were all staring him down.
Right. Oh, Maroon.
He muttered under his breath. He approached Wacky, who was sitting at the table. Standing next to Wacky, Charlie looked down at the other three clowns. He put his hands in his pockets and looked around awkwardly.
Well, get on with it. We don't have all day.
Wally finally spoke.
Hey, Cannon Buster. Who am I kidding? Look,
Charlie was starting to stammer.
I've got a lot to tell you.
Slowly.
You expect us to believe this shit?
Hugs threw both his fists down on the table.
Hugs, calm down. No, why should I, Wacky?
Charlie stood behind Wacky with an arm behind his back, looking down to the floor to avoid eye contact. Swirls and Wally somehow seemed more understanding than Hugs. Wally, despite being the most calm, wore the most worried expression. He always felt like something was lurking behind the scenes. Swirl spoke up.
Hugs, maybe we should let them finish explaining first. Why? Just so they can spew more sci-fi horror story bullshit at us? I don't think so.
Hugs, please, just calm down.
Shut up, Wally.
Hugs quickly attempted to lunge towards Wally, only to be interrupted by Swirls.
Enough is enough,
Wacky firmly stated as he reached down under the table and picked up his iconic yellow mallet. He swung it so hard it made a hole in the table. At that moment, everyone regained their composure, knowing any more acting out would surely result in something painful.
Charlie, show him,
Wacky instructed. Charlie slowly inched forward, with his head still facing the ground. He took his arm out from behind his back, revealing a stack of papers.
These might help you understand better.
Charlie dropped the sack of documents in the center of the table, leaving it up for grabs. Wally reached in and began reading silently. His expression dropped as he read to the bottom of the page, flipping to the next. When he was done, he put one hand on his forehead and rested his elbow upon the table. With the other hand, he handed it off to Swirls. Swirls read through the document, having similar reactions to Wally. When finished, he quietly spoke.
It's got a government seal and everything. Hugs, look at this.
Hugs swiftly snatched the papers out of Swirl's hands. Upon reading, a shift of expression waved across Hugs' face. He read, and reread. He examined every inch of the papers. When he was finished, he set them back down and leaned back into his chair. His once glowing yellow eyes now appeared dull and defeated. Feeling the negative energy radiating in the room, even Crouchy and Mia were noticeably uneasy.
So, why are you telling us this?
Hugs asked.
Because I've had enough. I've kept you guys in the dark for too long. They killed Liam.
Silence washed over the room.
The kid? Why would they go out of their way to kill a normal-ass kid?
Because I got caught telling him the truth. It wouldn't have happened if that stupid fucking clown doll wasn't listening on everything I was saying. I didn't even know he was there until after I told him.
Wait, so you're telling us now, even though you told the kid and he got killed?
Swirls questioned.
Calm down. We scanned the room. We're safe here. At least for now.
Wacky Mo reassured the others.
Well, what do you expect us to do?
Wally asked.
We've got a revenge scheme pretty much planned, but we need you guys to put it in action.
The clowns all looked at each other in confusion.
Tomorrow is Halloween, and it's gonna be one of the busiest nights of the year. So that's when we're gonna strike.
Wacky proclaimed.
I like the sound of this,
said Hugs.
Tomorrow night, after a normal day of operation, we're gonna lock up all the doors and start killing civilians. We'll take out the hallway cameras and destroy any potential outlets of surveillance. Once we have their attention, they'll show up. And when they do, we kill even more.
Charlie nervously said.
So, hold on. Are you asking us to partake in a potential suicide mission?
Well,
You know, I'm not on good terms with all of you guys, but for once I feel like there's something more here. Besides, Wacky, Charlie, I can't stop you two. If you're so confident in yourselves and us to pull this off, then I think we should.
The room went totally silent. The clowns were in awe. This felt totally out of character for Wally.
well, thanks, Wally. Perhaps I've been treating you too harshly, eh?
Charlie reluctantly smiled at Wally, and Wally smiled back.
Hugs, swirls. I guess that leaves you two.
Well, it seems like you three have made up your mind. Wally already said this, but I can't stop you guys. Plus, me and Hugs have been making some new weapons behind the scenes for our new films, you know? I think this would be the perfect time to show them off. Ha ha!
Swirls enthusiastically said.
This is all so crazy, and it's happening so fast. I don't want to die, but we've got nothing to lose trying this. How can I say no when everyone else is fine with it?
Then it's settled.
Everyone, we'll meet back here in the morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Charlie and I will brief you more on what we'll be doing. I think we should all take the night to get some rest and prepare for tomorrow.
All the clowns nodded their heads. Hugs, Swirls, and Wally all stood up and stretched. Saying goodnight to the boss, they headed out of the room for the night. Crouchy, however, would just have to sleep in the lounge for the rest of the night. They weren't going to hassle him again. Now that the others were gone, Charlie brought his attention back to Wacky.
Wacky. Are you really sure we should go through with this? I mean, what if we do die? What if...
Relax. What do we have to lose at this point? The only things we can lose are us. And if we all happen to die trying, What will we be losing? I mean, just some time ago, I found out that I'm technically not even real. We were all manufactured, and that our memories were too. When did the real memories start, Charlie? None of us know. As far as we're concerned, yesterday could have never happened. We've been evil in the past, but I'd rather die trying to fight a bigger evil than living the rest of my life obliviously harming others without consequence.
Wow. You are a lot less wacky off stage,
Charlie said in shock.
Thanks. Now, go get some shut-eye, or start prepping for tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you again in the morning.
I look forward to it too.
The two clowns smiled hugely at each other. A genuine sensation of companionship washed over Charlie. Maybe this will go a lot better than he expects it to. Wacky exited the room. Before leaving, Charlie made his way over to Crouchy and Mia. Crouchy was sitting in the corner, trying his best to stay awake. He put both hands on Crouchy's huge head and wished him good night. Told him to have nice dreams, and that he'd be back in the morning. He brought his attention to Mia, and also wished her a good night's rest, assuring her that despite everything that's going to happen, he'll make sure she's safe. Charlie walked over to the door. As he walked through, he turned around before shutting the door. A final good night, and the lights went off. Charlie went back to his own room for the night, to rest and prepare for the final night to come. $8:50. Crouchy, Mia, Charlie, and Wacky were early. Of course, Mia and Crouchy slept there. But Charlie and Wacky both showed up around 20 minutes early to scan the room, in case the doll had gotten in again, and to discuss more about the scheme they were planning. In the background, they had put on some calming music. In preparation, they had also laid out some key items on the table: Wacky's hammer, Charlie's bucket, and lots of walkie-talkies Charlie had laying around in a storage room. Crouchy was playing with one of them in the corner of the room. It seemed he really loved the sounds that they made. Soon enough, it was 9 o'clock. Wally arrived in a timely manner, walking through the door and grabbing a bagel and a cup of coffee from the concession table. Once he gathered his things, he headed over to the round table and sat down.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Wally took a bite out of his bagel. He took notice of the items on the table.
So, if I may, what's with this stuff on the table?
We'll talk about it when the others are here. Speaking of the others, where are they? It's 9:03 for crying out loud.
Bam. The door swung open full force. The sound of the door startled Crouchy so bad, he stood up and punched another hole in the ceiling. That ceiling will learn its lesson one day. One day.
I told you we should have just worked on them last night. Now we're going to have to prepare them all today.
Hugs said to Swirls as they barged in through the door.
Yeah, I know. Just grab a coffee or something and shut up about it. They're waiting on us.
Hugs and Swirls grabbed what they needed and sat down at the table amongst the other clowns.
Great. Everyone's here. Luckily, the things we still need to discuss should be quick and easy. After all, this plan is a pretty easy one on paper. Charlie, Wally, and I are already prepared in some capacity. I checked on Wally last night, and I noticed he dug out an assortment of weapons. Fire pokers, gardening tools, bats, etc.
I rarely ever murder, but I love a good revenge story.
I have Malleus by my side, and Charlie has his bucket. Speaking of, what do you plan to do with it exactly? I don't think swinging an aluminum bucket around is gonna do much damage.
Oh, I filled it with rocks.
Charlie tipped his bucket down to show that it was indeed filled with rocks.
That is indeed a bucket filled with rocks,
Wacky Mole said.
Hugs, swirls, what you guys got? Well, I have my trusty dagger.
Hugs exclaimed.
And I have a fucking gun.
Swirls exclaimed, even more excited than Hugs.
That is a lot cooler than Charlie's bucket of rocks.
Way cooler than my bucket of rocks.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, Hugs and I have been working on a super secret weapon. We won't say yet, but it's gonna be totally awesome in action. Totally. We also plan on rigging up a few makeshift traps around places too.
Listening to the others talk, Charlie began thinking to himself. It sounds to him like the others aren't comprehending the gravity of the situation. To him, it seems like they aren't aware that dying is indeed something that can very well happen. Even if just one of them dies, everything is going to change forever. But that's if any of them even make it out alive. There was no backing out now, though.
On the table you see these walkie-talkies. As you all know, we only use these during large or crowded events. I believe tonight classifies as one. The idea is simple. We're opening late today. We'll have 3 hours to make the rest of our preparations. For most people, that's no time at all. But we are not most people. We are, in fact, not even people. Throughout the day, we'll communicate with each other using these devices. We carry out our normal everyday procedures until 8 o'clock tonight. Understood? At 8, we'll all check in one final time. And if everyone's ready, that's when we'll start.
Got that, everyone? Prepare your weapons. Prepare to fight. Prepare your traps. Stay in touch. When the time comes, fuck shit up. Easy enough.
Everyone nodded their heads. Despite sounding easy on paper, it was pretty evident that the clowns knew they'd be in for a challenge. But they were up for it.
Seems like we've just about briefed everyone. Well, not yet. Hold on.
Charlie got up out of his chair and walked over to the corner where Crouchy sat. Crouchy heard someone coming in his direction, so his head perked up. Charlie knelt close to Crouchy.
It's only me, Crouch.
Crouchy smiled. Charlie put a hand under Crouchy's chin to keep him at eye level.
Look, buddy, you know I love you, right? And you know I would never do anything to hurt you, right?
Crouchy grunted and nodded his head like an excited dog.
Look, I know you don't like hurting people, but you have to protect us tonight. You're going to have to hurt some people. For Mia and your Uncle Charlie. Understood?
Crouchy let out a curious grunt. His smile dwindled a bit.
There are gonna be bad people here tonight, and we need you to protect us from them, okay? But you only have to do stuff when we tell you to, alright? Don't go ripping and tearing through crowds of people. We'll tell you when the bad guys show up, okay?
Crouchy solemnly grunted, but he nodded as well.
Good. I'll tell you more later, buddy. Thanks for the help. I love you. And maybe tomorrow.
Charlie stumbled over his words. He cleared his throat and gave it another go.
Tomorrow, I'll do something special for you, okay, buddy? And, sometime soon before we start the day, I'll, give you some food you really like. How does that sound?
Crouchy excitedly nodded while grunting excessively. Charlie patted Crouchy on the shoulders. He turned around to face Mia.
Don't worry about tonight, okay? I'll take care of you.
Charlie said, as he reassured the girl with a tender smile, albeit kind of forced. Charlie got up and walked back to the rest of his friends.
All right, well, that seems like everything we needed to go over. Hugs, Swirls, I know you have some preparing to do, so I'll let you guys get to it. Meanwhile, Charlie, Wally, I'm gonna need your help. We left the mess in my room overnight, and, we need to get it cleaned up. So, let's start preparing.
Wacky Mole exclaimed as he clapped his hands together.
All right. By the way, do not drink the tap water today. Swirls and I have a plan.
The birthday duo giggled amongst themselves.
All right, let's get Crouchy out of here and back into his room. Charlie, you need to take him back. Then meet up with me and Wally in my showroom. Hugs and Swirls, take this time to prepare. As I understand it, Wally and Charlie are both ready, and so am I. Whatever you say, boss.
Everyone gathered up their things and left one by one. Crouchy once again had to be assisted in fitting through the doorway, but soon enough, the lounge was empty, and the lights flicked off. Charlie shut the door. The lounge now sat by itself in darkness, vacant and silent. After Charlie got Crouchy settled in, he went on his way to meet with Wally and Wacky. Hugs and Swirls made it back to the party room, taking the time to prep their secret weapons, tamper with the water supply, and set up traps. It was a bright and sunny Halloween morning, a beautiful day outside with a nice, chilly breeze. The rules sign on the front of the attraction that read, "No bad costumes," and "Don't touch my hammer," waved in the wind like a flag, seeing as it had not been affixed to the wall for quite some time now. 1 hour had gone by. Crouchy sat inside his showroom, playing with Mia and his toys. Hugs and Swirls were still making preparations. Wally, Wacky, and Charlie were getting close to finish with cleaning up the bloody mess in Wacky's room. 2 hours. Wally, Wacky, and Charlie had finished cleaning and went their separate ways. Hugs and Swirls were just about finished with their preparations. Crouchy was still playing with his toys. 3 hours. Families stood outside the attraction. Children donned costumes of cartoon characters, superheroes, and their idols. Charlie, being the greeter and the only one without a designated showroom, had to open up shop. He would be roaming around and keeping things in control. Charlie tuned into his walkie-talkie.
Are you guys ready to open?
Static.
I'm ready,
said Wacky. Static,
Ready as I'll ever be.
said Wally. Static.
Crouchy's ready.
Said Mia. Crouchy could be heard grunting in the background.
Hugs, Swirls, come in.
We hear ya. Yeah, we're ready.
Hugs and Swirls said.
All right, I'm checking out. Gonna open her up now. Good luck with your performances. We'll check in periodically.
Charlie clipped his walkie-talkie to his waist and reached for the key ring, finding the one to open the front door. Flipping through the ring, he found it. Luckily, there weren't too many people yet. Halloween night has always proved to be the busiest night of the year for them, but the mornings were typically tame. If these people leave before the doors get locked tonight, they'll be lucky. Unlocking and opening the front door, the first few groups of people spilled in. Charlie greeted as many as he could, handing out free candy to children as he did so. This was not his rock bucket. He was keeping that somewhere else for now. He radioed in once more to let the other clowns know the situation.
All right, not too many people yet. Looks like we have an easy enough morning. You guys there?
I hear you loud and clear.
Wacky tuned in.
Say, Charlie, you know when we cleaned up earlier, we had to clean up the broken shards of glass from the mirror I walloped? It's back on the wall now. Perfectly intact. Did one of you replace it when I was absent from the room?
I didn't. Maybe one of the others did. Hey, Wacky, I should have mentioned this earlier, but when you go on break, you should grab those buckets of blacklight paint we got laying around in storage. You've been wanting to paint your walls to match your glowing outfit, right? Might be the last night to do it.
Heh, good idea. I can't guarantee my artistry will be any good, but I'll give it a shot.
Nice. Anybody else hearing me? If so, speak up.
I'm hearing you.
Wally, what you got going on?
Made a new addition to the collection room for our most likely final night. We were storing a fresh cadaver in the freezer in storage. Pretty sure this is one that Hugs and Swirls killed. Laid him out on my vintage embalming table, put him under a sheet. Bam. New exhibit. Hoping this draws more victims into my room tonight.
Might work. Hugs, Swirls, anyone there?
Hey Charlie, we completely forgot to tell you, but tonight is so perfect. A couple of nights ago, we had a family book the party room for a special Halloween birthday party, and it's reserved for 8 o'clock. How perfect is that? Looks like it's a double birthday party as well. 2 children turning the same age. We've got 4 adults and 9 kids. Perfect, huh?
That sounds too good to be true. I've got to get off. More people coming. Check in with me later.
Charlie clipped the device to his waist once more. The hours went by. Most of the guests from morning had left, but the pace was picking up. Wacky had gone on break and painted his room for the next wave of guests. Ominous messages lined the walls. All the main rooms were experiencing lots of traffic. The collection room and Wacky's auditorium seemed rather popular today. Crouchy was getting plenty of traction from the children who were rather curious of the big clown they had kept hearing about. Hugs and Swirls were doing meet and greets in the party room and would be doing so until their guests arrived. They even baked a cake in preparation, which may or may not be laced with something that you wouldn't want to find yourself eating. Charlie roamed the halls and talked to guests. The hallways weren't bad yet, but come nighttime, they would surely be crowded. As the public portions of the building were hustling and bustling with people, the speedway remained virtually empty, aside from a lonesome clown doll roaming its vacant halls. The hours were flying by, only 2 more to go. It was starting to get dark outside. This was typically when the guests start rolling in on Halloween night. Charlie's anxiety was starting to well up. It's getting close. Agonizingly close. Charlie went to go hang out in Crouchy's room for some time to make sure the big guy didn't do anything just yet. He decided he'd stay there until the big event started. Hugs and Swirls would be doing meet and greets for another hour and a half, using the other 30 minutes to prepare for their special birthday party. 1 hour to go. No turning back now. It was time. Charlie rested his back against the wall and gave some very deep breaths. His hands were shaking. He fished his way through the people looking out crouchy and behind the giant clown, opening the door to the speedway and stepping inside. He did this so that no civilians would hear him. Charlie grabbed his walkie-talkie and radioed in once more.
Come in, guys. It's 8 o'clock. It's now or never.
I was about to tune in and say the same thing. Does everyone have their master keys?
Wacky asked. Simultaneous yeses rang out from the walkie-talkie.
Good. We've got a large number of people in the building now. Hurry and lock all the exits you can think of. Charlie and I will get the front of the building. Wally, Hugs, get the sides and the back. The only doors we're leaving unlocked are our backstage speedway entrance doors and the doors in the speedway. Swirls, start taking down the security cameras. Got it? Now, move. We don't have much time.
The clowns went to work, scouring the building for entrance and exit doors to lock up, all the while trying not to get seen doing it. Swirls went around with a bat he stole from Wally's room, swatting down any security camera he could find. Doing this, however, meant they were officially on the time crunch. Who knew when those science bastards would be coming for them? Some civilians noticed some of the strange behavior and seemed to become anxious. Charlie tuned in again.
Doors locked.
A yes from everyone.
Cameras taken care of, Swirls?
Affirmative.
All right. That seals it. No going back now. Let's kick it off.
Charlie was breathing heavily and shaking as well.
Just in case we don't make it out of this, I just wanted to say I've had a lot of fun with you guys. Even if our lives were manufactured and a majority of our memories aren't, real, I still appreciate all these truly real moments we've experienced together.
I would give my goodbyes right now as well, but we're risking it with time here. But I feel the exact same way. If we don't get out of this, it was nice doing business with you guys. Hey guys, it's Swirls and Hugs here. We feel the same way, but we gotta get going. Our partygoers are showing up.
I'm sorry for what I may have done in the past and how I treated some people. Charlie, I hope we can put some of our differences behind us. Let's not possibly end this on bad terms.
Maybe when we make it out of this, we'll have to actually sit down and talk to each other, huh? Let's do this thing. Signing off.
This is it. Wacky Mole walked out from backstage and into view of the guests. Standing front center stage, the guests were smiling and clapping. Wacky felt nervous. He's really about to go through with this. Wacky Mole picked up his mallet off the stage.
Hello, everyone.
He let out a goofy laugh.
I hope you all enjoyed my show tonight, and all the wonders we had to bring you. My wonders, of course. None of this would be possible without my lovely guests. I do realize I am cutting my performance short. However, I am always obligated to end with an encore.
The crowd began to cheer. Wacky, too, was ridden with anxiety. This is it. This is it. This is it.
I will now need a volunteer for this next act. Aha! How about you? Bright red shirt, come up here. You're quite a handsome young boy. You must be a real charmer. This here is my hammer. Its name is Malleus. It's the name my good friend Wally suggested to me. And it is my prized possession. Would you like to touch it?
Wacky knew what he was doing. He needed this push. The child excitedly touched the hammer. Wacky instinctively jerked the hammer away from the child. The atmosphere in the room immediately shifted as parents stared at him, confused.
I'm sorry. Kid, this isn't personal or anything, but that costume looks bad on you.
Wacky swiftly raised his hammer in the air and came down as hard as he could on the child's head. A direct hit. His neck audibly snapped as he fell to the ground motionless. The room began to scream. In response, Wacky put on a huge smile and stepped off his stage. The encore has finally begun. Adults tried to fight back, but all the clowns had one thing in common. They were stronger. Wacky swung his hammer through the crowd in ballistic rage, hit after hit. After he had eliminated everyone in the room, he left. An enraged Wacky Mole now stalks the building for prey. His large green shoes echo down the hall with each angry step. At the same time that event occurred, Charlie made his mark. He swapped out his candy bucket with the bucket of rocks he had left in the speedway right outside Crouchy's room and came back to Crouchy's room. Charlie stepped back onto Crouchy's stage. He knelt to Mia's level.
Get backstage, now.
He tapped Crouchy's shoulder as Mia ran backstage.
Hey, folks. Hope you're enjoying our gentle giant over here. He's quite the treat, isn't he? Although, he's not so gentle when it comes to bad guys. Say, Crouch, remember when we talked about bad guys? And what you would do if they tried to hurt anyone?
Crouchy nodded his head excitedly, and the audience was giggling.
Well, Crouch, what if I told you they were right in front of you, and they're going to hurt me, and everyone you love?
The audience stopped giggling. Charlie dropped to his knees and began to mimic getting hurt, slamming his hands on the ground to make it sound like something was happening.
Ah! Crouchy! They got me! Ouch! They're hurting me!
Crouchy's smile had never washed off his face so fast. No one is allowed to hurt Charlie. He swiftly stepped off his stage and, without even thinking, started swiping with claws extended. Screams rang out. Charlie got back up, watching the carnage, and anyone who tried to crawl away was pelted with heavy stones. Once they had eliminated everyone, Charlie told Crouchy to leave.
Crouch, listen to me. You need to leave. Go search the building, alright, buddy? The bad guys are everywhere. Don't hold back. We're counting on you.
Crouchy nodded and stomped his way out of the room. Charlie left through the other entryway with his bucket of stones in hand. While these two events occurred, Wally was touring people through his collection room and mummy exhibit. Having just got off the walkie-talkies with the others, he knew it was now or never.
Well, that's about it for my exhibits right now. However, I do have one more awesome thing to show you.
He reached under the embalming table and grabbed a jar that contained a clear liquid of some sort.
This here is a jar of nitric acid. It's incredibly dangerous when exposed to human skin.
The tourists were interested in where he was going with this presentation.
Now, I'm not gonna waste your time explaining what it does when I can just...
Wally ripped the cap off and with a swiping motion of his arm, sprayed it across everyone in the room. Screams rang out, displaying searing pain and agony. Some people's skin even began to boil and bubble, the liquid eating away at the flesh and letting blood and bodily fluids spill to the floor. Wally grabbed an old rusty rake he had sitting in the corner of the room and began beating everyone on the ground. Occasionally, he would swap out his weapon of choice: fire pokers, gardening tools, painting and signs on the walls, bats, glass jars to throw at people, whatever he could use to get the job done. And last, but certainly not least, the birthday party. Everyone was in attendance. The children and parents alike were all having fun. However, it was now time to dig into the cake.
Cake time!
Swirls cut everyone their own slices of cake. The children and the adults began to eat the cake.
Tastes good, huh?
Hugs asked. Everyone around the room began to wear the same dazed expression on their faces. The parents noticed some of the kids beginning to pass out, but they were also too dazed and too weak. They rocketed up out of their seats and began to scream. One of the moms leaned over near her child to check if he was okay, and when she rose back up with the intention of confronting the clowns, she was surprised to be face to face with a revolver, that of which was being held by Swirls.
I decided to use my gun because it would be more fun,
Swirls said with a huge grin and rapidly spinning eyes. He pulled the trigger, shooting the woman at point-blank range. Her husband charged Swirls, but was intercepted by Hugs. Brandishing his butterfly knife, he plunged it into the man's neck. With two parents down, Swirls shot the other two without mercy. And next came the kids. Swirls had gone through 2 rounds of ammo to get the job done. They prepared to take this out into the halls of Wacky's Wonders, planning to eliminate the remaining civilians whilst awaiting the arrival of government officials.
I think it's time we prepare our secret weapons, Swirls.
Hugs reached below the table, grabbing 2 makeshift belts. These belts were equipped with bottles strapped to each side. In total, the belts each held 4 bottles with a special concoction. They each were equipped with a lighter. The duo left the blood-soaked room equipped with an array of deadly weapons. Everyone was now officially out on the prowl. Many guests still wandered the building. They all heard the screams. Mass hysteria and chaos had filled the halls. Every remaining guest was now a target for the clowns. No one was safe, and no one would be spared. Crouchy went stomping and shredding through waves of people, whilst Wally and Wacky swung their weapons at as many people as they possibly could. Somewhere else in the building, Charlie pelted innocents from a distance, and Hugs and Swirls, equipped with a gun and a knife, went stabbing and shooting throughout the halls. Soon enough, however, doors were being busted down, windows were being shattered, men in black tactical uniforms were infiltrating from every which way. Charlie tuned into his walkie-talkie.
Everyone come in, now! They're here. Get back to your rooms now and defend yourselves. Take out as many as you can. I'm grabbing Crouchy and Mia, and we're gonna stick together. Wacky, Wally, you guys might want to team up. Things are about to get dangerous.
Wally, start heading my way. We'll barricade in my showroom.
No response.
Wally?
Still no response.
God damn it. I have to start by myself. Signing off.
Charlie quickly clipped his walkie-talkie to his waist once more and ran to the nearest speedway entrance he could find, which happened to be through Crouchy's room. Opening the door, he was shocked to find that Mia was gone. She was supposed to stay put. In a panic, Charlie began to frantically search the speedway.
God damn it, Mia! Where are you?
He shouted. After a minute or two of running around, he heard one of the speedway entrances bust wide open, followed by the sound of stomping. Crouchy came stomping around a corner, grunting as he did.
Crouch? How did you find your way back here?
Crouchy recognized Charlie's voice and stopped dead in his tracks. He tilted his head and made a noise of confusion.
Look, we don't have time. We have to find Mia, and quick. Follow my voice, okay, buddy?
Back in Wacky's room, he had boarded up the main entrance to his room as best he could, but it surely wouldn't hold for long once they found him. Wacky set his hammer aside and frantically went for his radio to try and connect to Wally.
Wally? Wally, please come in. Are you okay?
No response.
God damn it!
Wacky closed his eyes and held his radio to his forehead. Had they lost one already? Before Wacky even had time to think, there was banging on his door.
Shit!
Wacky dropped the walkie-talkie. It busted as it hit the ground. Wacky positioned himself close to the entryway door. He set his hammer aside and picked up the somehow fully intact mirror off the wall. He gulped. 1, 2, 3. The guards kept ramming into the door. They showed no signs of stopping. 4, 5, 6. They just kept coming. 7, 8, 9. The boards were giving away. The nails were coming undone. 10. A board dropped to the floor. 11. The door had cracked open. Wacky's heart sunk. The men behind the door took one final collective step back before charging the door again. Wacky could hear them begin to charge. 12. The door swung wide open with 5 guards rushing in, guns and batons at the ready. Wacky seized his opportunity and brought the mirror down upon the guards, shattering it into thousands of shards. The guards, now distracted for a split second, allowed Wacky to reclaim his hammer once more and start beating. He took swing after swing, successfully knocking 2 of the guards unconscious. But the other 3 took notice of what happened and quickly regained their ground. One of the guards took Wacky by surprise, taking the butt of a heavy-duty assault rifle to the face, causing Wacky to fall to the ground and grab his face with one hand. Another guard took this opportunity to kick Wacky in the face as hard as he could, causing a couple of Wacky's rotted teeth to fly from his mouth. Wacky jolted back onto the floor, hitting his head. Kick after kick. The guards wouldn't stop. After Wacky was nearly unconscious, the guards rolled him over and shackled his hands and ankles. Once he was subdued, they began attending to the unconscious guards on the floor. Wacky's vision was fading. Hugs and Swirls were still scrambling around the facility. They hadn't yet encountered any guards, but it wouldn't be much time until they would catch up. Together, they persevered.
Swirls, I think it's time. All right, let's do this thing. Get one ready. I'll check in with the others real quick.
Hugs took out his radio.
Come in, everyone. Who's still there?
I hear you.
Charlie was the only one to respond.
Evacuate the building, now. Swirls and I got this.
What are you guys doing?
We're lighting this place up. We cut off the water supply and flooded the pipes with the gas we had in storage. Now leave! We're taking too many chances as it is.
Hugs signed off.
Shit, Crouchy, we have to find Mia, fast!
Charlie and Crouchy continued to search the speedway. Swirls threw the first Molotov cocktail down the hall as they ran from one end of the building to the other, attempting to make it back to the party room. Hugs pulled out the next cocktail and threw it into the next room over. As they ran, they prepared the next cocktail and threw it into the next room over. Hugs and Swirls noticed two guards walking down an adjacent hallway with their backs turned. Swirls lit his cocktail and threw it as far as he could. The cocktail landed right behind the guards, lighting them and the floor aflame. The guards flipped around in the direction the bottle came from, aggressively patting their flaming bodies. Whilst focusing on the flames, it seemed they had forgotten about the grenades they had strapped to their vests. They couldn't put themselves out in time. Boom! The first grenade set off the other three, causing a deafening explosion. The two clowns ducked around the corner as fast as they could. Hugs was struck with flying debris.
Holy shit! Hugs, are you alright?
Swirls asked as he hunched over Hugs, who was lying on the floor with a hand on his chest.
God, this hurts really fucking bad. But yeah, I think I might be alright. I'm bleeding though,
Hugs said, wiping blood off of his suit.
That's good enough. We need to get going now. We don't have much time.
They ran away from the flaming hall behind them, which now had two gaping holes on both walls and a section of nearly collapsed ceiling. Once that was taken care of, they made it back to the main entrance of the party room, having used almost all of their cocktails along the way. They only had two left.
Hugs, if we survive this, we ain't gonna have anywhere to go. I'm pretty sure Wacky and Wally may have bit the dust. Well, a captain always goes down with his ship, eh? And sometimes, so does the crew,
he yelled as he lit his last cocktail and threw it down the hall that led to the party room. They both rushed inside, stepping over piles of bodies, trying to get to the other end.
Swirls, give me your last Molotov.
Swirls handed it off to Hugs with a sad smile. Hugs opened the secret back door that led to the speedway, lit their very last cocktail, and threw it down the hall. He shut the door behind him. The room was already starting to fill with smoke.
Hugs, remember when Wally came in that time and yelled at us for lighting that kid on fire? Yeah. How mad do you think he'd be right now?
The two clowns let out a hearty chuckle. The room was so smoky that they couldn't see in front of each other anymore. They sat down at the table as the fire crept closer and closer to the party room. Swirls grabbed his video camera from under the table to film one last time.
You can't see anything, but look at what we did. This whole place is on fire. Haha. We got so many people tonight as well. Yes, a perfect finale. Fuck you, science people. This is Hugs and Swirls, signing off.
Swirls stopped the camera. The two clowns laughed and laughed as the fire finally crept into the room.
God damn it, Crouchy, I can't find Mia.
Charlie panicked. Crouchy tried as hard as he could to listen for her, but it was no use. Crouchy could hear the screams and smell the smoke. The smoke was starting to seep into their area of the speedway. Crouchy instinctively swooped Charlie up into his arms and began to run.
Hey, what the fuck do you think you're doing? We need to find the girl.
Crouchy ran through the speedway. There was a certain area he had memorized in his head, a place he knew how to get to despite his blindness. Crouchy began to slow down as he approached the large metal rolling door. Charlie previously used Crouchy to open this door time after time when trucks came to resupply. Crouchy set Charlie down and slowly approached the wall with his hands extended outwards. He walked right into the rolling door, feeling it with his hands. He reached to the bottom and started pulling upwards on the door. Before them was the outside world. A roadway and a forest station beyond.
Go.
Crouchy uttered.
What? Crouchy, you have to come with me, and we need Mia.
No. Go now.
But
Run.
Crouchy urgently said. Charlie reluctantly approached the door and stepped through. Crouchy felt the air outside the door to see if Charlie was standing outside, and when he felt that he was, he slammed the door.
Crouch!
He banged on the door.
Find Mia, and I'll be waiting right outside this door for you.
Charlie sat on the grass and buried his face into his hands. The fire was quickly taking over the building. Set pieces collapsed. Countless civilians were killed by smoke inhalation. And now, half the building was going up in black smoke that obscured the night sky. Charlie tuned into his walkie-talkie.
Is anyone still there? Hello? Hello?
No response. Charlie threw the device into the air and started pounding his fists into the ground.
God fucking damn it!
Just then, a huge explosion rang out from the facility behind Charlie. It was coming down. He could hear sections of the building caving in and collapsing. Without thinking, he stood up and ran away as fast as he could. Explosion after explosion. The building was to the point of no return. Once Charlie got to a distance where he felt safe enough to stop, he turned around and gazed in complete awe of the sight behind him. The whole building lit aflame, plumes of smoke going into the night sky. Everyone was still in there, but Charlie could hear sirens in the distance. The headlights of Nova vehicles, ambulances, and fire trucks swiftly began approaching in the distance. Charlie, all alone, stayed under the tree line and watched the flames grow bigger. Have you been to the infamous Wacky's Wonders once before? Did you meet the kooky cast of clowns in person? Did you get the chance to meet the gentle giant himself? Did you walk away with any memories that you will surely never forget? Who knows? Maybe if you had made it in time, Hugs and Swirls could have given you the best day ever. Maybe you could have walked away with your own signature from the four-fingered, goofy-looking clown. But you didn't. You've only heard the tales, and that might be for the best. This chapter of the story is over. We hope you'll stick around for the next one. See you in 78 years.
Hello, Mr. Palmer. It's me, Volkman. We haven't talked since I took over your position quite a while ago, but you originally spearheaded this project, so I only feel it's right if I tell you what happened. The Artificial Life Project is being shut down after what happened. Funding got cut temporarily, so we'll be struggling for these next few years. Oh yes. I didn't even tell you what happened, did I? They all just went insane. We honestly have no idea what happened to cause this. They caught our attention when the swirly-eyed ones started knocking down the security cameras. Some of them were still functional, just hanging on by a thread. Soon enough, we heard crowds of people screaming. At one point, we even heard gunshots. We knew this wasn't just an isolated incident. These were crowds of people screaming. We sent a few squads in immediately. Turns out the clowns locked people in and just started going crazy on them. So naturally, we started trying to apprehend them. Our main star, Wacky Mole, was actually apprehended, but as the place came down in flames, I don't think him nor that particular squad made it out. It's been a week, and we still haven't found those bodies. It seems that party duo clowns also didn't make it out. But hey, we managed to find the big guy. He's injured. He must have stumbled out of the building mid-fire and hid somewhere. We found him under the tree with a little girl. The girl also had a Furby in hand, kind of cute. Wally was successfully apprehended. We also have him in containment now, which is honestly great because he was the most successful to begin with anyway. He had the most human-like qualities, also the only one of them to display any sexual traits. We'll definitely keep him to study and test on. Then the other one, Charlie. Can you believe that he turned himself in? We were at ground zero and he just waltzed out from the tree line. He refused to tell us anything, but we got him and we'll also be using him for testing. We also kept the girl. There's no way we can let her go after everything that's happened. Well, despite this project being kind of a total bust, we have something promising in the works I think you'd love to hear about. Once we get our funding back, our next idea is to start working on portal technology. We've been throwing this idea around for a while now, but we've officially decided it'll be our next area of focus. We hope to discover how to open portals locally to get from point A to point B. We also hope we can access different dimensions to realms with interdimensional portals. We're far from this happening quite yet, but it surely does sound promising. So yeah, thanks for everything. Call me back when you get a chance. Thanks.